Riverton awoke beneath a soft morning haze, its streets slowly filling with the familiar rhythm of daily life. Commuters clutching coffee cups, buses groaning along their routes, and shopkeepers unlocking doors as sunlight crept across the skyline. Inside Precinct 9, routine masked a storm about to break. Patrolman Wade Turner and Officer Bradley Knox, long known for their hostility more than their duty, moved through the morning with the arrogance of men who'd never faced consequences. Wade, smug and untouchable, and Bradley, his loyal imitator, had dodged years of complaints, excessive force, racial profiling, verbal abuse, all brushed aside by a system more loyal to itself than to justice. That morning, they cruised downtown, their swagger unshaken. Near Lincoln Avenue, they spotted a woman standing beside a dark SUV, her arms crossed, eyes fixed on a nearby bakery. Dressed in jeans and a navy windbreaker, she seemed calm, composed. Loitering? Wade muttered as Bradley reached for the door. No questions, no courtesy, just immediate aggression. They approached with hostility, barking commands. "Move along!" one shouted. She barely responded. "I'm just waiting!" Before Wade struck her face, the slap cracking through the street. Bradley shoved her, shouting again. She staggered, but stayed upright, lips parting not in pain, but disbelief. Onlookers froze. A man dropped his bag. A mother gripped her daughter's hand, while phones quietly recorded. The woman stared at Wade, voice low and chilling. "You just made the biggest mistake of your career." Without another word, she turned and walked away. Wade sneered. Bradley laughed nervously, but neither had noticed the badge lying plainly. On the SUV's dash, Lieutenant Commander Reagan Vaughn, United States Military Police Corps. She hadn't raised her voice or hand. She didn't need to. Her silence was more damning than any outburst. And by the time the officers realized who she was, it was already too late. 3 hours later, she returned. Not in civilian clothes, but in full uniform, insignia gleaming, boots echoing across the precinct floor. 2 internal affairs agents flanked her. The front desk sergeant straightened. "I'm here to see the captain," she said. Captain William Decker, usually composed, looked visibly shaken when Reagan entered his office and placed her cover on his desk. She recounted every detail from Lincoln Avenue. When Wade and Bradley were called in, they didn't recognize her until their eyes landed on the insignia across her chest. The blood drained from their faces. "Ma'am," Wade stammered. Reagan remained calm. "You assaulted a federal officer, on duty, in uniform, in public." Bradley tried to protest, but the bystander footage had already surfaced. Clear video and damning audio. Captain Decker reviewed the evidence silently, the disappointment in his eyes unmistakable. "You've disgraced this department," he said at last. The officers were suspended immediately, but the fallout spread fast. The video exploded online. Headlines screamed military officer assaulted by police, and within hours, national news was replaying the footage. Reagan refused interviews, choosing silence over spectacle. Her quiet dignity, her refusal to retaliate, and her insistence on due process earned widespread respect. The military issued a statement confirming her identity and expressing full support. As the investigation widened, more victims came forward. Stories of intimidation and abuse by Wade and Bradley poured in. Internal Affairs reopened old cases, and the department's reputation unraveled. 6 months later, in a packed courtroom with cameras flashing and protesters outside, Reagan took the stand. Calm and measured, she described that morning. The slap, the dismissal, the pain of being reduced not to a person, but to a profile. "They didn't see a human being," she said quietly. "They saw a target." Her words cut through the courtroom like a blade, silencing even the judge whose gavel rested still in her hand. The verdict came swiftly. Both officers were found guilty of assault, abuse of power, and official misconduct. Though their prison sentences were finite, the true punishment was enduring: shame, public disgrace, and the complete collapse of their careers. Under mounting public pressure, the police chief resigned, and the department was forced into a reckoning. Bias training was overhauled, a civilian oversight board was formed, and a direct hotline for misconduct complaints was launched. But Reagan Vaughn didn't linger to soak in the applause or headlines. She quietly returned to duty, her focus undeterred. The mayor later awarded her a medal for civil courage, not for drawing a weapon, but for standing her ground with composure and conviction. Her story was integrated into police academy curricula nationwide. Cadets studied the video, read her testimony, and learned not only the cost of unchecked authority, but the immense value of discipline and restraint. Reagan never claimed to be a hero. She didn't have to. Her quiet defiance in the face of brutality did what protests and petitions had failed to do for years. It forced a broken system to look in the mirror. And this time, the system looked away first. Her calm presence had outmatched chaos. Her silence had echoed louder than outrage. In the end, she reminded a watching world that real power doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it walks in without raising. Its voice, firm, deliberate, and unshakable, because the most undeniable truth is the kind that arrives in uniform, needing no introduction.